And welcome everybody. I'm so happy you have joined me today for today's training going over flower card readings and the tools that we offer to help you speak to the flowers and help your clientele know which of the Lotus Way flower essences will be most helpful for them in that moment. So first of all, what I want to cover, we'll be going over our 12 flower pick a flower card, as well as the card deck reference sheet and our card deck as well. And I'm going to address a handful of the flowers that can be a little bit more difficult to speak to. So give some tips and things that I like to share during those. So without further ado, I'm going to take a sip of my drink. It's cold and rainy here. It's wonderful. So this right here, this is what we call our 12 flower pick a flower card. And so this corresponds with each of the 12 in blends in the line of products that we offer. And this is what we use in our store when we do events. And it's available in the wholesale shopping cart for you in this format. It's a nice cardstock. It's also in the wholesale training folder. So if you just want to print your own copy as well, that is available to you, but it's available in the wholesale shopping cart if you want this printed version for use in your store or spa, your practice. So I'll just go through real quick. What I usually do with this card, very similar to when I do other flower card readings, is I will have somebody close their eyes first. The reason that I do this is because if they've already been looking at it, they might have some ideas of what they're most attracted to, or they're attracted to everything. And I'll invite them to close their eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and then when they open them, tell me which flower jumps out at them the most. And I've gotten feedback a lot of times it's different than what they first thought. So depending on what they choose, so we'll just start here. Rose corresponds with fierce compassion. And then on the back, it's going to give you the details of fierce compassion. There's a question right here that can be a really helpful way to introduce what the blend is for. And I'm a huge fan of simply reading off the back of this card. That's why we have it the way that we do. So for instance, fierce compassion. Do you feel like you could use some extra love and comfort? Fierce compassion increases our capacity to nurture ourselves and softens hard edges. And then it goes into the magnifies and dissolves as well that you can share. A lot of times people will be attracted to more than one. So if I notice that they're having a hard time deciding in that first moment, I will say, if there's more than one, let me know and we can share both of those. Because a lot of times there are we contain multitudes. There's usually more than one thing that we're currently dealing with. Sometimes I'll even ask people when I have them close their eyes to sink into where they are right now, or if there's a particular issue or challenge that they're wanting support with, not to be solved, but want support with, they can kind of hold that in mind. And that can be really helpful in kind of pinpointing which of the essences are going to be most helpful for them in that moment. And let me backtrack just a little bit. So the reason that we love using this method right here or our card deck is that if you were to read what every single blend does, what every flower does, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I need that, I need that, I need that. Oh, I really need that. Oh, I also really want that in my life. Because each flower helps amplify qualities within us that we all innately have and that we could probably use a little bit more of or a little bit more support with. However, when we use the visual method and allow ourselves to sink into where we currently are and pull our logic brain out of the equation, we're able to follow our intuition a little bit more effortlessly and pinpoint again that one flower, that one blend that's going to make the most impact in that moment. So that's why we really encourage using the visual method, especially with people who might not have had experience with flower essences before or aren't really sure what they want support with. If you've been carrying our products or using them for a while, it's likely you have clients who are like, I need more of my quiet mind, or oh my gosh, I love wild abundance, I'm out. But for those who might not really know where they need the most support, or they've been working with one blend and they're ready to jump into the next, but they're not really sure what the next one might be, this visual method is really helpful. And I'd also like to share that even when you've been working with flower essences for ages, this method still works. So I personally will use this for myself as well. So I know by heart what every single flower on this page in the card deck, what it's good for. But when I close my eyes and sink into myself, I'm still attracted to that which I need most in the moment. And it's hands down the most effective tool that we have, that we've discovered. So I just wanted to share that as well. So even when you know what the flowers are for, your clients know what the flowers are for, it still is really effective. So that is our 12 flower pick a flower card. And then we also have, I don't know what happened to them. They've just seemed to have disappeared, but we also have a backbar one that is going to have the 7 flowers that correspond with the blends that are available in the backbar sizes. So if you utilize our blends in if you have a massage practice or esthetician and you utilize our backbar essences, as you know, we don't have all 12 available. So we're going to have the African Daisy, which is in Joy Juice, the Firestar Orchid in Inspired Action, Pomegranate in Radiant Energy, Hong Kong Orchid in Infinite Love, Bird of Paradise in The Quiet Mind, Arctic Lupin in The Inner Peace, and then Game Changer is also available in backbar. So we do have a card that just has those 7 blends. And that can be a really great tool to really customize your client's experience, whether you're doing massage, facial, and you really want to customize it to them. We have that backbar card. I don't believe they're available on the wholesale site right now because we ran out, but we're getting more printed, so you can order those as well. And we'll also, again, it's available in that wholesale training folder. I know that I reference that a lot, and it's a really great resource on our wholesale website where you can reference materials, and you can also access printable items, product guides. We have PDFs in there that if you want to educate yourself a little bit more around, say you've got a yoga practice, we've got a mini ebook in there about using flower essences with yoga that we collaborated with other yoga teachers about, flower essences for women's wellness that we collaborated with this amazing acupuncturist and herbalist, Erin Borbet, who specializes in women's wellness, and put together an ebook for that, as well as for mamas and babies, particularly flower essences for pregnancy and pre and postnatal care. So we've also got all those resources in there. So those are the one-page sheets that we have for you. And then those of you who carry the flower card deck, you might have seen in the email that we sent out last week, I think it was, maybe 2 weeks ago, we have put together this reference guide for you. So if you use the Flowerevolution Card Deck within your store, you do readings, or you just have them available and invite people to pick cards themselves, and somebody wants to work more intimately with a card that they're using, or they just want to know which is which, this is also a really great training tool for yourself and your staff. So it goes through, let me see if I can get this to focus. Okay, this is mirrored and backwards on my screen, so hopefully you can read it. But so there's our Wild Abundance blend, and then each of the 4 flowers that make that up. So if you're utilizing the card deck and say you get the Night Blooming Cereus and you read about it and it's totally spot on, and then you want to know, oh, how do I support myself and work with that flower? You can reference this card deck, and we made it visual to make it really easy for you. There's the Night Blooming Cereus. It's in our Full Bloom blend. And then within the card deck as well, if you've worked with it, you might also have noticed that there are 4 cards that, wait, which blend is that one in? And the answer is, it's not. So our card deck corresponds exactly with the Flowerevolution book, as well as any of the additional flowers that are in blends that aren't in the book, such as Bird's Foot Lotus or Mountain Laurel. So the 4 flowers that are in the card deck but are not currently available in blends are going to be Nasturtium, Nectarine Blossom, Squash Blossom, and Strawberry Blossom. And on this reference sheet, so if somebody chooses one of those 4 cards or it shows up regularly, we have recommendations for the qualities that that flower elicits, what blend to work with, so you still get the benefit. So for instance, Strawberry Blossom, we recommend Joy Juice or Game Changer, depending on the feedback from your client or having worked with them, which they resonate with most. And you can even, okay, you pulled Strawberry Blossom of these 2 flowers, the Giant Spider Lily or the African Daisy. You can ask them which of these 2 are you more attracted to. And then that can also inform which one might be most effective. Let me look at this reference sheet one more time. At the very top, we've spoken to this multiple times, but I'm just going to reiterate it. There's going to be the yarrow and the pink lotus flower. So these cards are in the deck, and those 2 flowers are in absolutely everything that we make, every blend, every single elixir, every modality. The reason for that is, excuse me, let me take a drink. So, excuse me, pink lotus is what we call a catalyst flower, meaning that anytime, it's the same, it's very similar in herbalism, there's different herbs that will amplify whenever you add it to a tincture, or in this case with the flower essences, when you add that essence to others, it will amplify the qualities of that flower. So pink lotus is an amplifier, and then its innate quality that it helps us develop or tap into that we already have is our own divine wisdom and that innate knowingness, and really tapping into and trusting that. So pink lotus is in everything. And then same with yarrow. I know I shared this on our last training, but yarrow we originally only ever had it in the radiant energy. It's really good for detoxing from electromagnetic energy. So when Wi-Fi, when we travel a lot, we're on the computer all the time. So it used to only be in radiant energy. However, over the past few years, as the electronics and devices have become so much more a part of our day-to-day lives and something that support that we all need, that we decided, or Katie decided, to add it into every single blend because we really need that support. Just, it's constantly around us. Technology is great. I wouldn't be able to operate without my phone. We wouldn't be able to run businesses. However, it can really take a toll on our physical and energetic bodies. So yarrow is in everything. I will add this aspect as well. So if it comes up in a flower card reading, or you're speaking to it and it might not be fully resonating with either yourself or with somebody for whom you're doing a reading for. Another aspect of yarrow, besides the digital detox, is it also really helps with community and community building and support systems and finding those, which I find also really interesting that it's in everything. As many of you know or have personally experienced or seen studies, the more we become digitized and digital, the less connected in the real world a lot of us are, in a sense of community and cases of isolation or loneliness tend to arise more. So yarrow also has that ability of helping us feel more a part of our community and wanting to create community as well. It does not say that on the card. I might say it in the book. I'm drawing a blank on that, but I just wanted to add that aspect. So that might resonate a little bit more occasionally when that card comes up. Okay, I'm just going to pause real quick to see if anybody has any questions about the single page card readings, the reference sheet, backbar, that I can address before we move on to the card deck. Okay, I was clear. Awesome. Okay, so with the card deck, I'm not going to go through every single reading today, but I want to reference the two different kinds of readings, I should say. So within the card deck, you've seen there's these cards that have the different readings with the different methods. So the two main kinds of methods that we utilize are going to be the visual method, which is essentially the same as this one, very effective, and then the intuitive method. Both of these are going to be just as effective. Again, I tend to utilize the visual method more frequently with people who might be newer to flower essences. It just tends to be a really effortless way to kind of like get that aha moment, like, whoa, I just got called out by a flower. That was really interesting. And it's highly, highly effective. It's something we have been utilizing for years and years and years, since, before we very first had the product line and we were doing farmers markets. It's a very, very effective method. So within the card deck, there's two different ways to do that. I will cover these ones more specifically. So we call it both the stack and the tile method, very fancy names. So within the stack method, simply all you do, or you have your client do, is go through the card deck. You're going to make two piles. So attracted to, not feeling so much. Yeah, no, yes, no. And you just kind of keep doing that until you've gone through the whole deck. And then you take your stack, it's usually bigger the first time around, and you'll go through that again. And then once you get down to maybe like 6, you can spread them out and then choose the top 3 that jump out at you. And that's going to be a very effective way within the visual method. It's really great when you've got smaller space, or even, you're carrying your card deck with you, or you're with friends and you want to pass it around. It's easier to use in smaller areas, or even, at the counter or by the product itself on display. It's a very easy way to do that. If you have a larger surface area, or you're having some event or something like that, you can also do what we call the tile method, which is you simply lay them all out so that you can see all of them and then have the person choose the top 3 or so that they are most attracted to. Something else that we do very frequently, and you can utilize the card deck reference to be able to do this, I'll pull 1 card from each blend. So you'll end up with 12 cards. Let me see if I can do this real quick for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Close enough. So 1 card from each blend. So for instance, here I've got Pink Primrose, Firestar Orchid, Pink Peony, Bamboo. So 1 from each blend. You can choose the ones that are on the bottle. A lot of times that's a really easy way to do it, or the ones that are on here. And you just lay those 12 cards out for somebody. So they correspond to each blend, and it makes it a little bit more streamlined, and it can also be a little bit more interactive, even if it's the same cards that are on this sheet. To have it in the actual physical card form, there's a little bit more information specifically about that flower. This is going to be specifically about the blend itself. The question is a little bit more on this card, more pinpointed towards the flower itself, but the information is going to be towards the blend. With the flower card deck, the information on the back is very specific to the flower itself. So sometimes it can feel like a little bit more personal reading. Not necessarily, it's still going to resonate, but it's a different way to do it. And then within having all 12 of those cards out, you can also have the samples. So somebody chooses Chocolate Daisy, you spray them with Joy Juice or anoint them. And again, that's where this comes in really handy. I'm so excited about this. So you guys have been asking for something like this for a while. We've got it. It's also just a really great way to get to know the blends better. You can divvy up your card deck or the book. It works for the book as well. That's why we did the visual. And then in the wholesale training materials, there is also an alphabetical list. We didn't do a printed version of that. It's just an alphabetical list of what's in there. So if you're utilizing the book, that can be an easier way to reference which flower is in which product. But this is a great way to become a little bit more familiar with each of the different aspects of a blend, because having those 4 different flowers within a blend, there might be one aspect that's going to resonate with a client more than another. We'll just continue with the Joy Juice, for example. So Chocolate Daisy is really good for simplicity, and not, if we're attracted to it when we tend to have a tendency to overcomplicate things. So somebody might really resonate with that aspect of it. There's also Pink Spirea, which is great for letting your inner child out to play when we feel like we're too busy for fun. Pink Spirea helps us find the joy in little things. African Daisy we're attracted to when kind of the way that we feel that weight of the world responsibility on our shoulders, and it helps us just kind of lighten up a little bit, and really see the joy and wonder in the everyday. And then there's also Bird's Foot Lotus, which helps dissolve. We tend to be attracted to that one when we have a tendency to worry, specifically the kind of worry that lives in our stomach and can cause digestive issues even, but that kind of like cramped knot when we just worry. Bird's Foot Lotus can help dissolve that. So there's all those different aspects within Joy Juice. The more intimately we know the flowers, which the card deck and the book are a great way to learn those things, the easier it is to speak to the blends for your clientele, for yourself, for your employees. And the more confident we are in those aspects, the easier it is to connect with our clientele as well. And then within the intuitive readings, so we'll jump on over to those. We have a handful outlined in the card deck. We've got these cards: your current impact pull, relationship insights, feeling more connected, card of the day or week, navigating a challenge, and unlocking your full potential. So these are all going to be intuitive method ones as opposed to visual. One thing I want to point out when it comes to doing intuitive readings is I will always have the person I'm doing the reading for, as often as possible, be the one to pull the cards. The reason for this is different from other maybe like oracle decks or other card decks that people might be familiar with. The Flowerevolution Card Deck is simply reflecting that which we already know, as opposed to channeling information from elsewhere. So as a way to encourage that inner knowledge, I always like to have the client choose the cards. And then I share with them that I am simply the interpreter. I'm there to help interpret whatever it is that's coming up for them. Because sometimes it might be a little tricky, like, oh, I pulled gardenia for my money card. In that, I would also encourage you as the reader and somebody who has worked with these flower essences, who is the translator for your clientele, to trust your intuition and be able to translate what they need to hear about that flower. A lot of times when I do readings, I've been doing them for quite some time now, so I do know them very intimately. But even when I'm doing a reading, I will occasionally, after I've shared some information, I'll even say, I'm just going to read the back real quick and see if there's anything else that jumps out at me for you. So there is, what's the word? Reading the back. You can read the back. That's why it's there. There's no shame in not having it completely memorized. So that's a great way to do it as you get more comfortable doing readings for yourself and others. Simply read the back. So the intuitive readings can be, they're a way to introduce the flower essences in another way, I guess. We do the intuitive readings as an offering, as opposed to, or we'll do them for like our flower reading of the day and things like that, as opposed to a way to, on our sales floor, I guess is the best way I want to put it. Excuse me, not this one. This is going to be the most concise and convenient way to really speak to the products and help people decide what's best for them. Whereas the flower card readings, specifically the intuitive method, is for when you got a little bit more time to work with and speak to your clientele or whomever you're talking with. So we've got a few more minutes left, and I want to cover a handful of the flowers that I got some feedback that people tend to have. It can be a little bit more difficult to speak to. It's like, ooh, how do I share that flower? So I will jump into those. Does anybody have any questions at the moment before we transition there? All right, awesome. So I've got this stack here and I will do my best to get through. We've got 9 minutes left here. So the first one is going to be the red rose. So with rose, how I tend to do readings, again, this is how I do them. It's not necessarily as you do them, you will find your own groove and how you like to speak to certain things. I just want to share how I do it in case it's helpful as a jumping off point. You will have your own experience, your own methods that will develop over time and different things that will come through you for your clients. So with red rose, Frequently when I have somebody attracted to a flower, I will start with, generally, when we are attracted to red rose, we might be feeling the need for a little bit more nurturing and softness in our life, particularly towards ourselves. I'm just going to do this reading. A lot of times with rose, we might have a tendency to revert to hardness, and it's possible that we have a belief that life is a struggle, or in order for anything to be worth it, it has to be hard. So rose helps us kind of dissolve those self-limiting beliefs and help us be softer with ourselves and more nurturing to ourselves. When we do that, we're able to be softer and more nurturing with others. There's also the aspect of rose that helps us set boundaries at the same time. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to set boundaries with others, and rose can help us do that. So that's rose. So a lot of times I will just start with, we tend to be attracted to a certain flower when, and I'll usually speak in, I'm forgetting what that's called. I'll use we instead of you. That way it feels a little bit more communal versus I'm calling you out. You're too hard on yourself. Be nice. So I'll have it, I try to soften it a little bit through using we language. And also that way if something doesn't resonate, it's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit softer. They can choose what resonates versus using you language. Spotted bee balm. This I would say is probably one of the hardest, because the question is, have you recently had a traumatic experience or been confronted with a major change? So when we speak of trauma, a lot of times we think of things like a car accident, death, and like close family or friend death, PTSD, things that are incredibly traumatic. However, trauma can be created in our emotions and in our bodies from just big change. Heartbreak, moving across country unexpectedly, somebody saying something that you didn't know, and it creates trauma. So using that different kind of language with spotted bee balm can be really helpful. A lot of times when we are attracted to spotted bee balm, we may be working through unresolved grief even, and things that are living our body that we don't necessarily realize are still operating. It helps us be still. It helps us be gentle with ourselves. Take deep breaths. And there's also with spotted bee balm being able to tap into the wisdom of great change and things in our life that have created hardship or trauma, and be able to learn from them instead of identifying with them as a traumatic experience. But what is the lesson within that? And this one is in Boundless Wisdom. If you ever get really stuck with a flower, you're like, oh, I don't really know how to speak to this one, you can speak very lightly to the flower itself, and then just kind of go into the general blend. So, and then spotted bee balm is found in Boundless Wisdom, which is really great for spaciousness and helps with meditation and unboundless love and compassion. So you can kind of touch and then go into the bigger picture if that's easier as well. I am running out of time. Okay. What I might do with some of these flowers too is just pull out some keywords and do that in the email. Fireweed's another one that can be a little bit hard to speak to. So when somebody's attracted to fireweed, I usually say there might be some sort of unresolved heartache that we're experiencing. It could be something that we know, or it could be something that we experienced even as a child that we don't recall. So again, giving room for those different experiences that somebody could resonate with. When we are attracted to fireweed, we are ready to let go of the experience itself and whatever hard feelings that might be associated with it. And again, look for the lesson in that. The message is forgive somebody now. So it could be someone you might know. A lot of times in these situations, the forgiveness that's required is towards ourselves. Again, whenever doing readings, coming from a place of we and having compassion for the person for whom you're doing the reading, and just simply holding space for whatever might arise for them. It might really resonate to the point that they have a completely stoic face and you're like, am I getting through? And it's very possible that the nail has been hit on the head and they're not really sure how to respond. So just holding space for whatever might arise there for people. A couple of other ones that can be hard to speak to. Mandevilla. Mandevilla, a lot of times when we're attracted to this flower, we might be afraid of losing something, whether it's a relationship, position, or any kind of change at all. And what Mandevilla helps us do is just accept how things are, and also knowing that things might change. These are the other ones I have: Bodhi leaf, black bat, lilac, and orange hawkweed. I will write these up because I'm already running out of time. If you have any questions or anything that you want to know more about that I wasn't able to cover in today's training, again, please email me. wholesale@lotusway.com is going to be the best way, or you can just respond to the recording and I will get that out to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Sorry I had to cut this one a little bit short today, but we will also have our next training in December on how flower essences can help amplify your business by using them yourselves. So I'm really excited for that training, and that information will be coming out probably next week or the week after as well. So you are very welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I've got this recorded and we'll send it out to you. And hopefully I'll see you next month as well.